Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamer Thoughts podcast. I'm RJ, and I'm joined here by no one this time. That's right. I'm subverting your expectations. But Matthew could not be here for today, which is fine. I'll just roll with this one on my own. And that's bound to happen. That's going to happen more times because when you're doing a podcast with two people, we usually come together to record on Thursdays, and then it gets edited and put up on Friday. But I mean, we're not always going to be free for each other. So sometimes one or the other is going to have to do it by themselves. So I came up with a fun idea just to do real quick. I came up with this on the spot. I wrote down a little thing for it. And it's strange because Matthew's been handling all the stuff on like the outline of what we're doing. So this is the first time I've actually had to do that. I believe. But this will be fun. But what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about horror games. Only horror games that I've played. But we're going to be doing a big overview of some of the horror games I've played. I've played so many over the years that I can't possibly remember all of them. But I am really excited to talk about them with you guys. Now, I have, again, played so many horror games. Horror is one of my favorite genres behind things like RPGs. I really enjoy like Pokemon and Undertale. I've been getting into Pokemon actually recently, and boy, am I glad I did. I love those games way more than I thought I would. But I've been getting into things like Pokemon, and I've always loved Undertale to death, and just stuff like that. Um, but there's still plenty that I need to play. But beside RPG, what else really is there that I like more? I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm sure there's another genre that I'm just forgetting. Probably platformers, yeah, 3D platformers, 2D, whatever. I probably like more, but whatever. That's not the point. The point is I love horror so much, and I've been playing it probably since 2014 is when I got into horror games, and we'll talk about why. And okay, so my history with horror. That's like the first section I got here. Um, I started in 2014. I'm, just riding the school bus, right? I'm a normal kid. This was 6 years ago. It does not feel like that long ago. Man, it is insane to think about. I was like 10 years old. Um, but 6 years ago, I'm on the school bus, and there's this slightly older kid comes up to me. Well, I just had to sit next to him this time. Me and my friend sat next to him because there's no room on the bus. And he's got a tablet, and so we all start playing on it. And he shows me Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, I was a kid obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's, and he showed me this. I believe only the first two games were out at the point when I started jumping into them. And I absolutely love them. They drew me in pretty hard. I ended up buying all of them. And so Five Nights at Freddy's is like, yeah, it gets memed really hard, and no one really takes it seriously anymore. But it has a seriously special place in my heart, especially for being the game that got me into horror, got me interested. But I obviously wasn't interested in, or I didn't, like the type of horror that I like now. I was all about the jump scares then. I was a kid. I wanted everything to be loud and exciting, which was okay. Which was okay for being a kid, but I am glad that I ended up getting into it. And I've never played the Silent Hill games. I've never played Alan Wake. I've never played stuff like that, like the old classics. The oldest horror game I've ever played was Resident Evil 1, which is a pretty fun game. I never finished it. I never even came close to finishing it, but I did have my fun with it. It was a pretty decent game. It was a decent time. I played the remastered though, which came out like I can't remember, like 2003 maybe. I'm not sure. 2003, 2004, something like that, maybe. But yeah, besides that, I have not really played a lot of the classic horror games like Silent Hill. And there's still a lot of Resident Evil games like the originals that I have not played. I've played some of the remakes, but I have not played most of the original games from that series. Um, I've just never, I don't know why, I just haven't. I've heard great things about those games, but I just really haven't played them except the first one. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The game that got me into horror was Five Nights at Freddy's, and I just went from there, going through so many horror games trying to get a good scare. That's actually when I discovered Markiplier. He's still one of my favorite YouTubers ever. He's amazing still. Um, but that's when he was in his heyday doing Five Nights at Freddy's and a bunch of other horror games. And I ate it up. Oh my god, me and my friends would watch him on the bus and we would die. We would love it. We had such a good time. And god, those were the days. I had so much fun with that. But yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's. Thank God for that series. Thank God Scott Cawthon getting me into horror. But we're going to talk about some popular horror games that I have actually played or have some sort of connection with. I don't have a bunch here. By the way, I'm super tired right now, and I've still got a lot of stuff to do tonight regarding my YouTube channel. So this video will either be super long, it'll be super short. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I don't really have a timer here up next to me. I'm not paying attention to my recording time. But this could be really long, it could be really short. I don't know. Just bear with me on this one. I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of winging this one. But we're going to be talking about some popular horror games that I have played and or I have some sort of connection with, like I said. And I don't have too many. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And then I'm going to talk about my top 3 favorite horror games. All my top 3, like they're all up there in different categories. But popular horror games, I just wrote them down in a random order. So I started with Five Nights at Freddy's. Obviously, all these games are popular. Every time they come out, they're super popular. And Scott Cawthon does not know how to stop. I'm pretty sure he's coming out with another game this year. Good God, dude. Yeah, he just does not know when to quit making these games. But I'm okay with this, okay with it, because as much as these games aren't taken seriously, and I know a lot of people don't like them, I love them. They're so simple, and I just enjoy them. I don't know. They're not scary by any means. I do not think that at all. But I actually have made a ranking video up on my YouTube channel, and I pretty much stand by everything. I might change 1 or 2 things about that, but I pretty much enjoyed all the games. 3 was less so. Five Nights at Freddy's 3. It was just the first 2 games, but worse for me. I don't know. It was when I started getting burnt out on Five Nights at Freddy's because I played the crap out of the first 2, and the third one came out, and I was just less excited. But overall, I don't think the Five Nights at Freddy's series is that bad. I enjoy it quite a bit, way more than I probably should. And I was very happy when they brought them over to Xbox and Switch and PS4. I thought that was a great decision, and I hope they bring some of the others over, like Pizzeria Simulator, Sister Location. I don't think they'll actually be able to bring over Ultimate Custom Night because there's just too many buttons in that game. There are way too many buttons in that game to contain on a single controller. I honestly do not think that it'd even be possible, but if they could figure out a way to make it work and make it work good, I would be all for it. I don't think they'll be able to, but that'd be really, really cool if they could. But yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's, pretty fun. The first game, let's just go through the Five Nights at Freddy's games, actually. The first game is the basic. It is where it started, and it is what made it so popular, obviously. And I enjoy it still to this day. I do think it was a bit overrated, now looking back on it. There's nothing great. It's not scary. It's just a pretty basic game, especially compared to the rest. It it's not scary, and I don't know. It's got super simplistic gameplay, but it does still have slightly addicting gameplay. So I guess that's what drew people in. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is the first game, but amped up a bit. And I do think I was unfair to this in my video that I made on these games. I think this game is pretty good. I went back and played it recently, and I enjoy this game. It's fun. It's still not a favorite of mine, but I put this near the bottom of the list, and it didn't belong there. But this game is still really fun. But it's still, yeah, not a favorite, but it took everything from the first game and amped it up a bit, in which you gotta respect. And then there's Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which is a game I actually don't really like that much. It's not absolutely horrible, but it's not exactly a good game either. It's just boring. This game is just so yellow, and it just looks ugly. I don't think it looks good. The jump scares are pathetic, especially Springtrap. His jump scares are like, they didn't even attempt to make anything slightly decent. And it's just a boring game, and especially just having one animatronic, like real animatronic, it just wasn't as fun for me. I've never been as interested in this one as I have the other ones. Then there's Five Nights at Freddy's 4, a favorite of mine, up there in one of the, it's one of my top favorite Final Fantasy games. I know a lot of people put it near the bottom, but I like how it spiced up the gameplay. Changed it up a bit. It was still pretty much the same type of game, but they switched it up a bit, which made me pretty happy. Um, and the jump scares. This is the one game from the series that actually can make me jump from time to time, and not very much, but it can do it, which is kind of awesome. Um, and yeah, the game's slightly terrifying, but not completely. And then there's Sister Location, really really cool game. I love Sister Location so much. After 3, they amped it up. They knocked it out of the park with every game. Sister Location, a really good game. It was actually really funny. It had some genuinely creepy moments. It wasn't scary again, but it had some genuinely creepy moments. It had really good voice acting. It had a good story to it. It had a really good story to it. I just love Sister Location. Pizzeria Simulator, same type of thing. It's so different. It spices up the gameplay in so many different ways. It's such a fun little game, especially the Pizzeria Simulator part of it. It's just so fun. I love it so much. Um, and God, the story in that one's really good too. It ties the whole series up together in a nice little bow, kind of. Well, there's still a lot of loose ends, but I mean, it ties up some things in a neat little bow, and I really appreciate it for that. And then there's Ultimate Custom Night, which is obviously fun. It's just a million of them, 50 of them, 52? No, it's 50. Yeah, they give you just 50 animatronics and say go wild. So I have a blast with that one, just to kind of mix and match and experiment and see how far you can get with different combinations. It's fun. It's a really fun time. But that's the Five Nights at Freddy's series. I do want to say I do seriously enjoy the story, and that's probably what has kept me playing recently. Is the story is such a good time. It's such a good time. I love the story of the Five Nights at Freddy's game. It's super confusing. Like, God, is it confusing, but it's interesting. So interesting. But let's move off from Five Nights at Freddy's and move on to Resident Evil. So Resident Evil is an interesting series for me, and I'm not too, I don't know, I'm not too knowledgeable on it. I played the first one a little bit. I never played Resident Evil 0, I never played the original 2, I never played the original 3, never played 4, 5, 6, none of them. I played 7, we'll talk about that one later in the podcast. So all I can really talk about, I never really played the Resident Evil 3 remake. I've seen a little bit of it. I have not really gotten into it, but Resident Evil 2 remake I can talk about. That game is fantastic. It is wonderful. It's scary, like a horror game should be. The story is a lot of fun. The voice acting is amazing. The item management, God, the enemies are so good. Mr. X is absolutely terrifying. He's amazing. I love him so much. He's might be my favorite part of that game. Just the way he kind of stomps around the whole place, and he's forever, for most of the game, he's kind of just there, and you got to deal with him. And you can hear him stomping around in different parts of the police station. The puzzles are okay. I mean, they're nothing crazy, but they're fun enough. Weapons are a blast to use. All of that game is so good. The graphics are mind blowing. They're mind blowing. God, that game looks truly incredible. Like, it blows me away still to this day how good that game manages to look. Along with Resident Evil 3, both those games look truly remarkable. And I am shocked that it can look that good. But we do have another Resident Evil game on the horizon that carries on from Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8 Village, and I am so excited. The trailer looks really cool. It was my probably it might have been my biggest takeaway, my most anticipated game from that PS5 reveal thing. I don't know. I'm also really excited for Spider-Man 2. Miles Morales. That looks like a lot of fun. But I am really looking forward to Resident Evil 8. I cannot wait to carry on Ethan's story. From there, let's move on to Slenderman. Yeah, this is going to be a shorter podcast. I'm kind of blasting through all these way quicker than I was expecting to, but whatever. Slenderman, I've never really had too big of a connection with. I've played a couple of the games, but I don't like them. I just don't. I'm sorry. Slenderman himself is not very scary to me. I still haven't watched the. I'm gonna look this up real quick. I still have not watched the movie. Was it? I can't remember what year it was. Um, I think it was 2016, but they actually 2018. Man, they made a movie on Slenderman, and it has 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. I want to see it. I want to watch this movie so much. God, I want to see it. It actually pulled in a profit. Yeah, I can't believe that actually pulled in a profit. The budget was $10 to $28 million. They're not exactly sure, but they pulled in $51.7 million in the box office, which is mind blowing. But it's got a 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. God, oh my God, I need to see this movie. Um, oh my God, I need to see that movie. I love bad horror movies, but I don't know if that would be a fun bad or just a boring bad. I don't know. There's different types of bad horror movies. But anyway, Slenderman, never really been too big of a fan, and it's pretty simple. You kind of walk around the woods, and you find different pages, 8 pages. The game is Slender, the 8 pages, and I mean, I don't know. It's just boring. It's not scary. I don't think it's that great, honestly. Sorry. It's it got so popular, and I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't think it's that good. Um, but I don't remember too much about it. I'll actually go back to it sometime. Um, I'll go back to it eventually, just to see how it has aged. But I have not played it in a while. But I don't remember liking it that much. Now let's talk about Baldi's Basics. They just came off the new game, Baldi's Basics Plus, and I'm just gonna say I have never even touched a Baldi game. I just know that it's really popular, but I haven't touched it. Maybe I should, but it just looks so stupid. It looks like not my kind of thing at all. It looks like it's just a bunch of forced jump scares that are really stupid. And that's probably why it got so popular, is because that was just kind of the thing for whatever reason. Which is annoying. And I don't think that it should have been as big, just looking at it. But it got huge, and that's why they made another game. Maybe I'll check it out eventually, but it looks awful. I think the games got awful. That's pretty much all I can say on those. Moving on, we got Granny. Everybody knows Granny if you've picked up the mobile phone. And you've tried to battle on that. God, if you've ever been on the App Store, the Google Play Store, you probably know what Granny is. It's super popular there for 2 seconds, like last year, for some reason. Fun fact, I played this game before it was stupid popular. Just saying. And it got ported over to PC recently, didn't it? In 2017. Okay, it got ported over there. And it's okay. It's pretty decent. It's not nothing horrible. It's not like offensively bad. It's a pretty basic survival horror game. Now, Granny Chapter 2 I did not appreciate as much. But I can look at the first one, and it's a decent time. It's not scary, but are any of these games really that scary? Well, okay, we'll get into that later. There are some pretty terrifying games, some genuinely scary games that I'm going to talk about, but none of these so far, looking at this, none of these are too scary yet. Resident Evil is the closest to actually being a scary game. But Granny, it's an okay game. It's nothing that'll blow your socks off, but it's fun enough. It's a decent time, definitely. You shouldn't write it off. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. Next, though, we're talking about Bendy and the Ink Machine, a game that disappoints me to no end, because God, the first like 2 chapters of this game are fantastic, so good, but then eventually, in the first chapter is only like 20 minutes long, but they had to stretch the chapters out into like hour-long plays, and it's just, God, it gets so tedious. They should have all been short length, because the first chapter is actually kind of scary. I actually really enjoy the first chapter of Bendy and the Ink Machine, but after that, it just was kind of the same thing over and over. I'll go around, hit these things a couple of times. do this same task over and over and over for this person. Like, it's so annoying. It's been a long time since I've played it. I haven't played it since around the time it came out. But God, is it not? It's such a waste of potential because it could be so good. And right now, for me, it just sits at pretty okay. Even though, God, it's such a cool idea. But overall, it's pretty just okay. Only because it gets so repetitive. So if it can, I don't know. They did come out with Boris and the Dark Survival, which I have not played. But if they can, if that's good, then that'd be, great. I hope it's good. I'm rambling, but I hope that's good. Um, I'd be really sad if it wasn't. I'm gonna try it eventually. It's only $3 on Steam, so I don't have really an excuse not to play it. But I'll play it sometime and see if it's better. But Bendy and the Ink Machine, it's a pretty okay game, and it could have been better. Next, let's talk about a bit of an iconic game. It's PT. Everybody knows PT, right? It's terrifying. This game is truly terrifying. One of the scariest experiences I've ever had in my life. It was a PlayStation exclusive demo for the Silent Hills or something. It was a Silent Hill game that was coming out, and it was a demo for it, and people didn't know until they beat the demo. And it had Norman Reedus at the end, which I guess ended up being used in Death Stranding, which I'll defend. I actually enjoy Death Stranding. Get out of here, people who don't like it. I enjoy it. But it was supposed to have Norman Reedus. It was a new Silent Hill game, and God, is PT terrifying. I can't even explain it. It's been so long, but I just remember it being truly one of the scariest things I've ever experienced in my life. It's like you're going through this same room or the same little hallway in this house over and over. You go through a door, and it's like an infinite loop of you just walking through and walking through and walking through, and things start happening that are increasingly more terrifying as you walk through. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the game has been completely wiped from the PlayStation Store. For some reason, you can't really get the game anywhere now. They just kind of wiped it off the face of the earth, unfortunately, which sucks. I think that's horrible. It's such a cool game. It's so cool. And if that was like a little taste of what the new Silent Hill game could have been, I've never played Silent Hill, but man, that would have been good. If they could have made something that along like that terrifying and that atmospheric, oh, it could have been such a cool game. But unfortunately, it wasn't. The game got canceled. But yeah, the game is amazing. Go watch a playthrough on it. It's awesome. I can't stress enough how cool PT is. And the last one in this little popular horror game section that I'm going to be talking about is the Evil Within series. Now, these aren't actually too popular. The second one undersold, and so they might not make a third one because it didn't sell that well. But I just needed to find a way to talk about them somewhere. I love these games. I really enjoy them. They're some pretty fun games. The Evil Within 1 is not as good as the second one, in my opinion. I'll fight you to the death on that. The Evil Within 1 is way too frustratingly clunky, and the controls just don't work very well. But like, I tried to go back and play it recently, and it's just hard after playing the second one because the first one does not control that well at all. But I do still really enjoy the first one. The story is pretty decent. The voice acting is pretty decent in the first one. It's not amazing, but God, there's just something about the game that's so good. It's so good. The game is so good. Go play it. And then the second one, so the first game is more of a linear game where you have a set path to go the whole time. But the second one is a bit more open world. You can kind of explore around what directions you're wanting to go. And it's super cool, and I definitely recommend playing the game, both of the games. It's super fun. The second one specifically, I feel like it focuses more on story and gameplay than actually being a scary game. But the first one is a bit more focused on horror. They're both good. They're both very good. They both have fun upgrade systems and stuff like that. Go try it out. Go check this game out. But okay, I think I've said my thing that I want to say on all these. So let's move on to my top 3 favorite horror games of all time. Yeah, this is going to be a shorter podcast. I'm looking at the time and I'm only 25 minutes in. God, this is going to be a short one. It might be like 40 minutes. But let's look at my top 3 favorite horror games of all time. Let's start with the scariest game I've ever played in my life. And PT doesn't count. We're talking about Outlast. Good God, is that game terrifying. I played it recently again, and my God, it is just such a terrifying game. So the premise of the game is that you're a reporter, and you go to a... I'm not gonna say too much on these, because I don't know, I'm getting stupid tired. Probably gonna cut this a little short. But premise of the game is that you're a reporter and you're going to Mount Massive Asylum. I think that's Outlast. It might be a different game. I think it's Outlast though. Is when you go to Mount Massive Asylum, and you're going to just check out like what's going on in there, I guess. And you can't get in, so you sneak in, and then you just get completely screwed over. And you don't have anything to fight back against a bunch of monsters and not a bunch of monsters, a bunch of it's just absolutely insane people because you're in a mental hospital. So you got a bunch of insane people in there trying to kill you all the time. You don't have no way to fight back. And yeah, there's literally zero way to fight back, and you only have your camera. And the game is completely focused around running and hiding, which is a really cool idea, and it's so much fun, and it's so tense. Even playing it on second playthroughs, second, third, whatever, on later playthroughs, it's still really tense. The scares lose their punch a bit, but God, when something just comes out of the shadows out of nowhere just at you, the scripted jump scares get less, shocking, obviously, on more playthroughs. But the things when you're just kind of walking around and then something just kind of comes out of the darkness when you're not expecting it, it's so good. And it's not like a scripted jump scare, it just kind of walks out in front of you. It's terrifying. The game is super atmospheric. It's super fun. The night vision's fun. The battery mechanic is fun. I like how you can get notes from recording certain things. It's just a fun time, and Whistleblower, the DLC, is also as fun. It's almost as long as the game. Outlast and its DLC together, it took me about 5 hours to beat, 5.5 hours, because Outlast itself took me like 3 hours, and then the Whistleblower DLC took me like 2.5 hours. Very small, very, very short. I have not finished Outlast 2 still. But I bought all of them in a collection. It came with Outlast 1, Whistleblower, and 2. I've not finished 2 yet. It's on my bucket list to eventually do it, but I just haven't yet. It's pretty good. Not as good as the first one so far, maybe, but it's pretty fun. But God, the game, I can't stress enough how absolutely terrifying and intense this game is. Just constantly running away from something, constantly hiding, constantly wondering what's next. It's so fun. But they did add some supernatural stuff to it. With the Walrider. I'm not going to spoil anything, but they added some supernatural stuff which I did not too much care for compared to just the normal Asylum stuff, but it was still a decent enough thing that they decided to add in, but I definitely prefer the Asylum stuff. But yeah, let's move on from Outlast. Let's move on to the horror game that I think has the best gameplay. That's Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 is such a cool game. It's such a cool game. God, the story is fun. It's just fun. It's nothing I take too crazy seriously. Maybe it's just because I played the game so much. I have played this game so much. It is so replayable. It has collectibles. It has, items you unlock by beating the games under different conditions, stuff like that. It's such a fun game. God, is it fun. And that's why it's under the best gameplay for a horror game. It's got so many different weapons for you to mess around with, like a grenade launcher, a flamethrower, shotgun, pistol, magnum, stuff like that. A slightly more powerful pistol if you're feeling it. It's got so many different weapons. The boss fights are all fun. It's fun to just kind of run and gun. It's also got a machine gun. I forgot about the machine gun. It's fun to just run and gun against the molded, right? The molded are the bad guys, obviously. It's such a fun game, and it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary on a first playthrough, but after the first playthrough, it's not at all, for the most part. But man, is it still fun because there's so much to do in this little game. It's not a very long game. It's like 8 hours on your first playthrough. It's not very long, but man, on repeat playthroughs, it is still a blast to just run through. It is, God, is it so? It's so fun. The monsters are fun to deal with. The boss fights are amazing in that game. The boss fights are incredible. Every single one is absolutely amazing. And they're all so different. You fight the same person. I'm not going to spoil nothing. But you fight the same person 3 times. And that sounds like it'll get boring. But no, the boss fight is completely different every single time. And it's so cool. It's so cool. And I love it to death. I love Resident Evil 7. And it is so fun. Now we get to my last thing that I'm really going to talk about in this podcast. Yeah, I know it's going to be pretty short. But it's going to be best story. And that goes to Doki Doki Literature Club, baby. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to say too much on this because I'm going to convince Matthew to do a podcast on it. I'm going to do it. I will get him to do a podcast on this video sooner than later. It's coming. It is coming, I swear to God. Because, God, is this game something truly special. It is a special game. And I gotta say, for what this game sets out to do, it is perfect at it. It's not my favorite game ever. No, that spot goes to Undertale. But it's very close behind. And it's perfect in what it tries to do, even though it's not my favorite game ever. Undertale is not a perfect game. I have slight problems with it. For the most part, it's pretty perfect, but there's a couple of problems with it. But Doki Doki Literature Club is literally perfect for what it is, for what it tries to do. So it's such an innocent game at first. It's an anime visual novel, and God, is it so good. So for a lot of it, for like the first half of the game's only like 4 hours long, so for the first 2 hours or so, 1.5, 2 hours, it's a normal visual novel dating anime inspired game. And if you're not into that kind of thing, stick with it. Seriously, just stick with it and you'll be glad you did. But I honestly didn't have a problem with, like, obviously anime dating games aren't my style of game that I usually jump to, obviously, right? And I've never played one in my life until Doki Doki. But the thing that makes Doki Doki special is that the writing is fun. It is just a fun time getting to know all the characters, and choosing which one you want to get closest with. It's so fun, and I don't know, it gives you some pretty difficult decisions in the middle of it, and it's just, typical dating game stuff. But then, oh man, if the scene hits, and it is like forever ingrained in my memory. There's this one scene where everything just does a quick 180 and goes just off the rails, insane, in a snap of a finger. It's just like complete 180 from innocent to terrifying. And it has, okay, a lot of people didn't jump at the scene. I'm not gonna spoil a single thing because you need to play it. A lot of people didn't, most people I've seen didn't jump at that, but it is, for me personally, the jump scare that affected me the most. Probably the best jump scare ever. Just loud music, it just pure shock. It just, the music is incredible in that scene. I'm not gonna give too much away, but the music is incredible in this game, period. And I'm not really talking about the story, but it has a fantastic story. It's really hard to explain. I'm rambling, but man, this is a game I need to ramble about. But yeah, once this scene happens, the entire game is just completely different. The entire experience is God, it's completely shifted. Your view is completely shifted for that last half of the game on what the game is, and it's got one of the greatest plot twists ever. That whole game is an amazing plot twist in and of itself. God, I can never praise this game enough. I will never be able to praise Doki Doki Literature Club enough. I think it is a perfect game in the story it wants to tell. I think it executes everything perfectly. Even just things like the music and the aesthetic and everything about it. Everything looks, the art style, everything looks awesome. Everything sounds awesome. Everything's awesome about that game. Everything that they try to do, they do beautifully. I love it so much. And so if you have not played it, please, for the love of God, go play it, because there is no reason you haven't played it. It is free. Go on Steam and look it up, man. It is completely free. So please play it. Please play it if you have not already. And we'll probably do a podcast on that eventually, because, God, I truly love this game. I love it so much. But that's probably about it for this podcast. I'm getting tired. I need sleep. I know we're only like 30, probably 34, 35 minutes in. But I need sleep. I'm tired, man. But this was an interesting video. It didn't go on very long, as long. This is going to be our shortest one yet, just because I'm here on my own. Usually I have Matthew to kind of bounce off of throughout the podcast. But this has been fun. I've had a good time with this. This is a topic I can talk a lot on, and this probably would have been longer if I did this earlier, but I didn't have any time today. It's like 11:30 right now, and I'm just ready to go to bed. Honestly, I had a long day, but I had a lot of fun talking about these. Play these games, specifically some games that I think you should definitely play, is like the Evil Within series, Outlast, Resident Evil 7, and Doki Doki Literature Club. Those are the best games on here, in my opinion. Go play them. Go play them. They're so fun. Specifically Doki Doki. Please play the game, guys. Please. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry if I go on too long about it. But God, it's such a wonderful game. It's a masterpiece of a game. And God, I love it. I love it so much. And I know it came out in 2017. The hype is way died down now. It's not really relevant. But God, is it such a good game? It's such a good game. But thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. Go check out our YouTube channels if you want to. Their links somewhere, I'm sure. But this has been fun. I've had a good time with this. Man, this has been an interesting time. But stick around if you're new. Go check out our other episodes that we have done. Thank you to all of our listeners that are consistently listening. You know, this is a god-awful outro, but I'm just rolling with it, man. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. If you're new, try sticking around and seeing what we're coming up with next. But yeah, thanks again, and I will see all of you guys. I'll talk to all you guys next week with Matthew, hopefully that time, or maybe it'll be him on his own. I don't know what's going on. You never know. Everything's always unpredictable.